All right. We are live as far as the internet's concerned. Trudy, how are you?
Yay, I'm good, Joe. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thanks. I am watching YouTube to make sure that the stream, this is, I don't know, do you do a lot of live streams and things like that?
No,
Yeah.
this is just my first one.
Awesome. Well, there's like a lot of control room stuff, right? I got to make sure we're live here on YouTube. I got to make sure we're live here on LinkedIn, which we are. Okay, so first of all, thanks everybody who is watching this live. If you are on YouTube, you can leave comments in YouTube and I will see them here. We can bring them up on the screen. It'll be lovely. If you're watching on LinkedIn, I am actively checking LinkedIn, so we'll make sure to get to your questions. My name's Joe Casabona. I'm a podcast producer and coach. I'm excited to be doing this presentation with Trudy Avery, the logo lady. Trudy, anything else you want to say about yourself? We didn't really talk about introductions. This is just a fun conversation we're having.
Hi, everybody. My name's Trudy Avery. The logo lady, as Joe just said, my specialty is branding. Love branding. Everything about logos and brand and creating designs. That's me.
Yes, that's better than what I said. My specialty, Sith Lords are my specialty. That's a Star Wars reference. I can't help but make them. My specialty is helping people, coaches, course creators, and authors build their authority and make money with their podcast. And today, Mohammed, thanks for being here. Hi, thanks so much. Glad you could make it. If you are in the chat, be sure to drop in, say hello, let us know where you're coming from, and of course, ask questions because we love questions. Yeah, I think that's everything. Should we get on with the presentation?
Let's start the show.
Alrighty. Okay, so we have a couple views here. I am going to hide Trudy and me for the time being. So we're going to be talking about branding for podcasts. The way the format works is I'll take the first couple slides, then Trudy will interject with her expertise. And I'm sure we'll have some commentary on each other's slides as we go through. So first, I want to talk to you about Friends. This is one of my favorite scenes, and this is a very popular scene from Friends, where Ross bought a couch, and he didn't want to pay the delivery fee. So he decided that it was only a few blocks away. The store was only a few blocks away from his house. He would bring the couch home himself and get it up the stairs. And then the rest of the show was basically him and his friends trying to pivot the couch to get it around this corner, and they couldn't do it. And it's because they didn't understand the positioning of the couch as it related to the stairwell. And as a result, Ross ended up cutting the couch in half to get it to his apartment before he went to return it to the store for $3 in store credit, decidedly less than what he actually paid for the couch. And the point in all of this is if you don't understand your branding and positioning for anything, including your podcast, early on, then you are going to end up losing money and definitely losing listeners, maybe not even gaining listeners. So it's really important to understand the positioning of your podcast. To further illustrate this point, I want to tell you the number of downloads I had when I sold my first podcast sponsorship. It was 0. Someone reached out to me before my show launched. They wanted to place a link on my website. I said for $99, you can sponsor the very first episode of my new podcast, How I Built It. It's the same exact audience. And he said, yes. If you go to howibuilt.it/001, you will see that sponsor's logo. That website is still working and has been updated. So he paid $99. Thanks for the like, whoever did that. He paid $99 for a link 7 years ago, and it's still paying off for him. But the point is that he wanted to reach a group of, at the time, web developers and WordPress developers, and my podcast was perfectly positioned for that. And I know what you're thinking. Yeah, right. You had to have had some sort of downloads or so you can't just get sponsors for nothing. But it's because my branding and my positioning were on point. I was already a known quantity in the WordPress space. I was starting a show in the WordPress space. And so I understood my audience. I understood my show's positioning. Because the truth is that I didn't get lucky, right? As a freelancer, I learned how to ask for what I wanted and needed. And so when this person cold outreached me for a backlink, I knew I needed some money to get the show off the ground, and I was willing to ask for it. But this would not have worked with my first show. This is the actual artwork from my first podcast, TIL podcast. TIL stands for Today I Learned. And it was me and a bunch of my friends basically having a bar room conversation about some topic. Just whatever we wanted to talk about that day. This show did extremely poorly for a number of reasons. First of all, it was unfocused, right? It was like 5 or 6 of us with a bad moderator, which was me. It was unpredictable. I skipped to number 3, poorly moderated. So it was unfocused. We weren't within a niche. We weren't focusing on any single topic. It was unpredictable because none of us did any research. We just kind of talked about how we perceived the topic. So when we talked about Bitcoin back in 2011 or 2012, we didn't really understand cryptocurrency. When we talked about other technologies that were in our area of expertise, we did better, but that's not what the show was about. And then again, it was poorly moderated. So we were just all talking over each other. I didn't know questions I wanted to ask specific people and things like that. But when you have a niche podcast or a niche podcast, this is the key to unlocking sponsors, leads, and things like that, and to grow your audience. Your podcast should have a clear niched audience. It should help listeners solve a problem. And if you do that, this helps brands understand if their target aligns with your audience. It helps potential listeners understand if you are actually solving their problem. And it will be the key, again, to growth. And the way that, first, let me just, Trudy, do you want to interject here at all? Is there anything you want to add to this, or do you want to tell your podcast story?
Well, when it comes to niching, it's so important, and you just can't express that enough, I feel, because you cannot be everything to all people. You have to mean something to someone. And the more targeted, the more focused you can be on your niche, then it gives people a reason to listen to you. It gives people a reason to be interested in you. And it gives you a voice to be able to speak to somebody. So absolutely, I completely agree with that. And it's something that a lot of people feel quite wary of, that niching too focused, am I excluding people? And I come across this all the time when I'm creating brands for businesses. They say, oh, I don't want to exclude people. And it comes down to it, I'm saying, if you don't, you will not be talking clearly enough to someone, nobody's going to listen. And actually, when you are really focusing, really talking to someone, other people hear you. So it's not a case of excluding everybody. It's much more a case of really being able to talk to you, to be able to really pull you in and speak with a clear voice. So 100% with that on niching needs to be done. And if you don't do it, then it's at your peril, really.
Yeah, I love that. First of all, Liz Fulcher, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Thanks so much for joining. There's an echo. Let me know if that has gone away. Thanks so much for being here. You also said my podcast is 9 years old. I'm an expert in the field and I need to begin monetizing via advertising. No idea how to start. Positioning is a really big part of that. Because again, I got that first sponsor because I knew who I was talking to. They knew who they wanted to reach. And so the positioning and the branding, I think, is really important. So thanks for your comments. Hopefully the echo went away. Let me know if that is still the case. Nishi Nishi, I hope I'm saying that right. Still there. Let's see what's going on here. This is again the perils of doing a live show.
Oh, it's me.
Oh, gotcha. Are you wearing headphones, Trudy? I forgot to ask this.
I don't even own a pair.
Interesting. Okay, duly noted. You don't own that's really interesting. I thought we had headphones when we recorded. Okay. Well, I'm gonna move on with my. You have the stream up somewhere, right? Do you have the live stream up somewhere?
Yeah.
Can you either mute that? Can you mute that? Thank you all for bearing with us through these technical difficulties. Well, now you're muted. If you've got the live stream up in a tab somewhere.
I think so. I've muted my microphone. I wonder if that helps.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Sounds like Trudy is speaking from the beyond. I'm gonna mute myself and try to. Yeah, I definitely hear your echo on the stream.
So the only window I've got open is the guest eCam.
And it still could be me. Let me, I guess, double check that I don't have the stream up somewhere else. Cause that could be the, I would have an echo on my end as well. Okay. All right. I am going to, why don't we keep moving with the presentation? And then when you speak, I'll mute myself and we'll see if that helps. All right. Sorry for the technical difficulties, folks. All right. So let's do this. So one of the most important parts of positioning is your mission statement. Your mission statement defines everything about your podcast and will be the guiding light behind your content and your calls to action. It will give your podcast direction, much like Spider-Man is giving this nice lady directions. So with a good mission statement, your audience is clear, your content ideas fall into place, and you have a plan to make money. Plus, your call to action is obvious. When you define your mission statement, because you know who you're talking to and what kind of content you're going to have, what you want people to do also becomes obvious. So this is the framework that I use for my mission statement. My podcast helps audience solve problem by, and then the goal of each episode. So, for example, with my podcast, The Profitable Podcaster, my mission statement is my podcast helps coaches, course creators, and authors build authority. So solve the problem of, let's say, building authority by showing them how to launch, grow, and monetize a podcast. And so because I firmly believe a podcast is a great way to deepen your relationship with an audience, this is the problem I help people solve. With my main podcast, how I built my main podcast, my older podcast, how I built it, the mission statement is my podcast helps creators make money by offering free coaching calls from successful creators each week. And so that is the mission statement for both of my shows. As you think about the positioning for your podcast, I would strongly recommend, even if your podcast has been going for a while, it's okay. I've changed the mission statement of my show multiple times, right? How I built it, it used to be my podcast helps WordPress developers learn how to launch a successful business by interviewing founders who have been there before them. But I've moved fully from development into the creator space. And in the last year, the number of monthly downloads for my show has grown. So getting all of this settled and understanding who you're talking to is super important. I would challenge you to use this framework to properly position your show.
And if I can just interject, in the same way that you really need to define your target market, you also really need to define what it is that you almost want to be famous for. Because again, this is something I come across a lot with clients, and I ask them, what is it that you do? And they can do this, they can do this, they can do this and this and this. They're qualified to do all of the above. But actually, if you try to communicate all of those things, then people just don't get it. They just don't understand the thing that you do. So whereas you define your target market as who you do it with, what you actually do is also really, really important. I'm a classic example of this. So I call myself Logo Lady because I design logos. The truth is, I'm a graphic designer and I design all sorts of things. But actually, if I could just be famous for being one thing, then anytime anybody hears the word logo, does anybody know a logo designer? They automatically think, okay, Trudy. And it's so important.
That is, I really like that point. Sorry, Trudy, I was listening and I'm trying to get rid of that echo. As you're talking, I changed the input, and so hopefully, that fixes it a little bit. But I am. Oh yeah, it totally worked. It was me, everybody. I'm the problem. It's me.
Non-headphone situation.
Yeah, see, that's always like, I'm so ardent about that. I had I'll give you a little behind the scenes look, folks. I had my input to grab my computer input as well, because usually I play music on the stream, but when you have a guest, that creates an echo. And so that's my bad. And I'm really sorry to everybody, especially Trudy, for blaming you.
You're forgiven.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So, thanks everybody for sticking with us through that technical difficulty. That is my fault. Okay. So when it comes to your mission statement, these are the 3 questions you're answering, right? Who are my listeners? What problems do they have? And how can I help solve that problem? And again, it's not going to apply to like the Joe Rogan Experience. It's not going to apply to true crime podcasts. It's not going to apply to fiction podcasts. But 78% of people listen to podcasts to learn something new. And so if you are digging in on that niche, right, as Trudy said earlier, right, I'm worried if I niche down too far, I'll alienate people. You want to alienate people, right? If you say like, oh, I help anybody fix their vehicle, and you're showing someone how to fix a bike, and I drive a Mustang, which I definitely don't. I drive a minivan. I have 3 small children. I'm really not going to trust that you actually know how to fix a minivan, right? But if you tell people, hey, I help people fix their minivans, great. If you tell people I help people fix their Toyota Siennas, well, now, I mean, you understand my specific issue, right? So this is really important. Who are my listeners? What problems do they have? And how can I help them solve those problems? So let's see. I'm looking in the LinkedIn chat here. Vincent, thank you. Mohammed, this is not really a WordPress live stream. I don't really do WordPress stuff anymore. If you're interested in WordPress development stuff, I would recommend checking out like wpbeginner.com for stuff like that. Okay, so now that we've got your mission statement and your positioning done, I'm going to turn it over to Trudy to talk about your brand.
So where I specialise, where I come in, is very much on the, okay, so what does this brand look like? And to do that, I need to understand various things. I need to understand all about you. Who are you? What's your personality like? What are your values? What's your experience? And these all form your ethos, your values. What's your mission? And I also want to know about your customer. I want to know how old they are, what do they do for a living, what is the problem that they have, how do they need to feel about you to want to work with you. And the same for the podcast. What is it about you that really makes them want to listen to you? Now, at some sweet spot in the middle here, we have this feeling, this emotion that combines you, that connects you. And this is where your brand lives. Your brand lives in this spot of they are on your wavelength when it comes to values. The things that you really value are the things that they also really value. And the things that you believe are the things that they really believe too. And this is where we capture the brand. And visually, we've got various tools to do this. And one of those, did that? Yay, there's a slight delay. I clicked the button. And one of the tools, one of the really powerful tools we have at our disposal when we're designing our podcast covers, when we're designing our logo, when we're designing all of our marketing for our podcast, is colour. And colour plays a massive, massive role in how we feel when we look at certain brands. So, for example, navy blue. I was talking about this to a client yesterday. Navy blue is a very trustworthy colour. It's very sensible. It's very corporate, business-like. We feel certain things. We know certain things when we see certain colours. Red is, well, there's a couple of sides to red. It can be either very amorous, it's the love feeling, or it's the warning sign, it's really stop, stand where you are kind of thing. And even within each color palette, so you've got if you were going to your deep reds, then maybe the emotion is like a luxury, powerful, seductive feel that you're creating. If you're going at the other end of the red spectrum and it's really bright and zingy, then maybe you're creating this huge energy, this motion almost of feelings, and a real I'm here, I'm standing out kind of feel. So think about your colours when you're choosing your brand colours, because I often say to people, you can't just pick colours because you like them. You can't just pick colours because it's your favourite colour. Although I would put in a caveat there that quite often when we're designing brands for ourselves, we are drawn to colours that really suit our personality. So sometimes you can pick your favourite colour and it's the right colour, but I would really urge you to dig deeper into why are you choosing that colour? Are you choosing soft, muted tones because that suits your personality? Because that really conveys your calmness. Are you choosing greens and blues because you really want to get that feeling of tranquility across, and that is the kind of person that you are? So sometimes the whole color thing really comes from a base level, a real guttural kind of, you just know that this is right because you can feel it. But definitely worth looking into the psychology behind colors and just think, how do they make you feel? What do they convey? Because in this, as I just mentioned, this sweet spot of where your brand lives, where you make that connection with the people who are going to really love you, it comes from a place of feeling and a place of emotion. So understand how what you're putting out there visually makes people feel. And this is also the same when it comes to fonts.
Hey
So
Trudy, can I put you on the spot really quick?
no, yes,
Why did you choose your brand colors?
because so my values are fun, creativity, and kindness. So those are the three things that are really important to me. And my colours are bright, they're cheery, they're kind of fun, there's nothing too serious in there, there's nothing boring in there. It is real fun. And for me, the yellow is hope, the green is really kind of creative, and but it does have a calmness to it. And for me, it's very much about the creating a feeling of fun and liveliness, and not being too feminine. And yeah, that was for me just getting across my values.
Nice. I like that. I as you were talking, I looked up because purple is my primary color. It's like a deeper purple, like a bluish purple. Used to symbolize creativity, royalty, femininity, spirituality, and sometimes wealth and extravagance. And it's interesting. I don't know. I'm not a psychologist, obviously, but many of my coaching clients have been women, and I don't know if that is due to the colors I picked. I just my alma mater's color is purple, and so I like that. It kind of reminds me of like a time when I was learning and also teaching, and so it like really resonated with me that way.
It is a very uh, purple. I mean, again, you need to think about the tones and the shades of purple. So, for example, if you were going to go a more deep sort of bluey, dark colour, then that would be more regal.
Mm-hmm.
But you've gone for, I would say, more of a playful end, and it's almost on the blues. It's only really just into purple, so it's got that feeling of maybe trust
Mm-hmm.
and calmness. So when I'm looking at this purpley blue, for me it's kind of it doesn't scream masculine or feminine to me. It does feel quite unisex. Um, it feels pretty calm and quite young. So if you go for a deeper purple, the more regal purple, then that maybe would feel older, more traditional. But sort of this spectrum, this end of the purple colour, is definitely younger. It's definitely more fun.
Awesome. Very interesting. Thank you.
Mhm. And okay, I guess fonts have feelings too. That's what I always say to people because you think about the vast array of fonts that are available. Heck, you can go online and just be bombarded with fonts. And again, I think most people do just follow their gut instincts. But yeah, think about what those fonts are saying. Again, it's not a case of, oh, I really like this font. So you often find, I'm going to just on my screen go top left and talk about the girly font. I've made it pink, very feminine colour. Script fonts are often quite feminine, but particularly this one feels very feminine because of just the curliness, and it's almost like the way girls write, as opposed to the middle line on the right hand side, which was more of a handwritten kind of splash, which always feels very personal, like somebody actually wrote it. And that gives across a feeling of like connection in terms of this is me, this is mine, I wrote this. In the middle there, at the top line, traditional, those kind of serif fonts, so like Times New Roman or those ones with the little kick at the sides, they often tend to feel very reliable because you can imagine they've been around for quite a long time, like it might be an old bank or something. But also notice with that word traditional, the fact that I put it in capital letters, which gives it a sense of authority. Sometimes capital letters can be shouty, but sometimes it's not about that. It's more about I am the authority. So, if you are your expert in your field, you might say, okay, well, I feel either that you want people to really connect with your personality, in which case you might choose a lowercase, upper and lowercase, or just lowercase, or you might say, I want to build my authority, I want to present my authority, and go with capital letters. So we have the fonts, which are, you can have a sans serif font like Arial or millions of others that are like that, and that's pretty straight talking, clean, modern, and I've put sophisticated in here too because that's a tall font. But you can feel all of these things when you look at the font, particularly like the techie one, the green, that feels like a techie colour. The babyish feels like a very like a child has written it. And yeah, do you feel those? I mean, let's look at your logo again, Joe. You've got your podcast lift off capital letters. You've gone sans serif. Do you know why you chose what you chose, or did you just feel it?
I kind of just felt it, which is interesting, right? Because I was in the web design field for a long time, and I would tell people like web design is like 90% fonts, like picking the right fonts.
Mm.
Because people are reading your site, and you want to make sure that they're getting that feel. I think for me, it looked and felt like strong to me, right? Like I'm gonna help you launch your podcast, and um, it feels
Authoritative.
like a lot of work, but
Mm.
I want you to trust in me. Like I've been here. I am a sturdy um, person to lean on when it comes to launching and monetizing. That's what I was hoping to communicate.
Yeah, and I think that it works. And also, you'll notice that you've picked a bold font as well. So again, that's the authority, that's the expertise coming over. And when you look at my font, the logo lady, it's very creative, handwritten, personal, and that's because that's the way I am. I think that's probably more like the kindness
Mm-hmm.
in me. It's like I really want to connect with you. I want to be a friend. That kind of feeling of connection and real personal personality, I suppose.
Did you actually draw? Is this a font or did you draw this? It looks like you could have drawn it in an app.
Yeah, I could have, but it is actually a font, and then I
Nice,
just play with things and tweak them a bit.
nice. I love it.
Galatoni, it's called.
Mm. Sunborn is mine. It's a font available in Canva.
Mine is not. Okay, so yeah, that's me finished on mine.
Oh yeah, look at that. So I wanna touch on this, right? Because let's say you go through. First of all, drop in the chat. Like, what is there a font that you love, or a color set that you love? I know personally, like when I am looking for complementary colors, like this is something I have a hard time with. I use a tool called I think it's called Paleton, which is hard because Peloton came out a couple years ago, but it's like Palleton, and it's just like a color wheel. You pick a color, you put in a hex color, and it'll give you like the triad, and then like some other types of complementary colors for that, which is how I picked my complementary colors. But if you have like a color that you really like to use or a font that you love, let us know in the chat. Be super fun to see.
I love there's a website My Color Space, which is brilliant for choosing color palettes based on one color that you love.
Nice, that's awesome.
Mm.
Um, but I wanna point this out. I'm gonna hide the cursor. Um, I want to point this out because um, you can spend a bunch of time creating the perfect mission statement, picking the perfect font and perfect color for your artwork, and then putting it in Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and then sit there and wonder, how come no one is? I've built it. Why is no one coming? And it's because podcasts are terrible for discovery. Um, they're getting better. Spotify and YouTube are trying to make it a lot easier to find podcasts. But at this point, especially if your users rely on Apple Podcasts or Overcast or Pocket Cast, like one of these traditional podcast directories, um, people generally aren't going to stumble upon your podcast. So they're not great for discovery. What they are great for are building authority. And so, um, again, this goes back to the point of we're trying to define a mission statement that that helps us help people solve a problem. And so people are going to tune in, they're going to listen to your show, they're going to view you as an authority, and they're going to deepen the trust that you have with them. And so I always tell people, right, especially if you're selling an information product, but if you are trying to get into client services, if you have a course or coaching that you want to sell, or even a book, um, you want people to know, like, and trust you. And again, a podcast is a great way to create that know, like, and trust factor. So when it comes to promoting your podcast. When it comes to getting people to listen and get more people downloading your show, you want to promote it a few different ways. You want to promote it through your newsletter. You want to promote it through social media. Social media is going to be the worst, if I'm being honest with you. Social media is going to be the worst. And you want to do podcast swaps. I think podcast swaps are a great way to grow your show because you're getting in front of lookalike audiences. Trudy has left the building. Sorry, Trudy. Trudy has heard me tell this story a bunch of times, I think, but
It's not that. My kids just came home from school and they're like, blah, 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 blah.
The perils of live streaming. My it's pretty nice outside and my wife's home, so the kids are outside. My biggest is at school. Trudy has heard me tell this story a million times, I think, but when Friends, again, we're sticking with the Friends motif. When Friends first came out, they were averaging probably like 17 or 18 million views per week, right? Which is good, right? Because this was terrestrial TV. People had to be in front of their TV at a certain time to watch the show. But then they did a 2-part episode called The One with Two Parts, and they did a crossover extravaganza with other NBC shows on Thursday nights. So in the first of this 2-part episode, they had people from Mad About You, which was an already popular show on NBC. So like Helen Hunt and her co-star showed up at Central Perk and confused Phoebe for Ursula because Lisa Kudrow played both of them and their twin sisters. And so that helped, right? Because Mad About You fans were like, oh, well, I'll check this out. Like if people from the show I like are on it. And then in the second part, Rachel hurts her ankle. They have to go to the hospital. And the 2 young doctors that help them are George Clooney and Noah Weil, who were starring in ER, which was, again, a huge hit of a show. It was new, but it was already a hit. And there was a lot of crossover there because it was about young 20-somethings living in big cities, trying to live their life the best they can, right? With dating and work and trouble. And after those crossover episodes, Friends' average viewership went from 17 or 18 million to 26 to 30 million per episode. So like they increased their viewership by like 20 or so % by doing the crossovers. So again, I recommend finding lookalike audiences. I have a whole other presentation on podcast swaps. Reach out to me if you want to see that. And then the last thing I'll say here is you got to have a good call to action, right? You want people listening to your show to take action. It needs to be super clear. And it needs to be an action that you want your listeners to take, right? What you need to remember with podcasts, with people who listen to podcasts, is they're doing something else. 50% listen on their commute. 40% listen to podcasts while working out. 36% of people listen to podcasts while cooking or baking. And so they're not fully paying attention, which means if you ask them to do too many things, they're going to do none of those things. So again, I recommend having one super clear call to action. I think join my mailing list is the best, but I do have a couple of examples of what could work here for you. So first of all, a good call to action is singular, clear, and easy to complete. It could be join my mailing list. Hey, I have this free resource based on what we talked about today. Head on over to blah, blah, blah /subscribe to sign up for my mailing list. It could also be check out the show notes. If it's going to be check out the show notes, it should be relevant, right? Hey, I just talked about my 5 favorite books to help podcasters understand business. I'm going to link them in the show notes. You can head over to howibuiltdiet/313 or whatever. It could be write in and ask a question at your email address, or it could be share with a friend. But you got to make sure that if you're telling them to share with a friend, don't just be like in whatever podcast app. Have a URL. Podlink makes it really easy. I think it's pod.link. For you to have easily shareable URLs for your podcast. A bad call to action is going to be too many and how to do it is not clear or easy. So like rate and review us on iTunes is a bad call to action because it's not iTunes anymore. And only like 26 to 30% of podcast listeners even use Apple Podcasts. So rate and review us on iTunes and subscribe wherever, in whatever podcast player you use. People are probably already subscribed. Most people are subscribed at this point. And check out Thing. The link is in the show notes. And join my mailing list and share with a friend. People are going to get overwhelmed if you tell them to do too many things and it's not clear. You want to make it as easy as possible for them. And in fact, Trudy and I both have examples of call to action for you folks, right? So we both have a special offer if you want to improve your podcast branding and positioning. Trudy, would you like to go first here?
Yep, thank you, Joe. So my call to action for you guys, if you want to really step up your branding, if you want to create something amazing for you to put out there to really attract the right kind of listeners that you want to listen to your show, then I can help you with that. And I would love with 2 different packages, but the first one is about creating the right podcast cover. So within that would be the logo, but the look and feel of your show as it appears in iTunes, Apple Podcasts, wherever they see it. Or the silver package goes a lot deeper than that. And we look at not just the podcast artwork, but how you then market the show. So how does it look when you do put stuff out on social media? How does it look when you do send out emails? How does it look across a broad range of different media? So check out my website. This link here will take you through to this offer, and it will then list out all the things that you get within each package. And this is only available to you if you're going into this offer.
Awesome. And I'll be sure to drop both of these links in the chat/comments across all platforms once we open it up for Q&A. For me, I have a podcast growth audit. So you can get it. It's usually $360. You can get it for $99 as a special offer. This helps me understand your problems, but it's also real feedback. It's going to be a recorded video I give to you. And what I do is I go through my 7-point growth framework. So you will get, I'll audit all of the directories that your podcast is in to make sure that it's everywhere so people can discover it. I will review your title and description of your podcast as well as your artwork. Though if Trudy did your artwork, I don't have to worry about that. I will review the episode titles and descriptions to make sure that they are optimized for growth, discovery, and SEO. And I will also give you 5 podcasts that you could swap with. So the shows and how to reach out to them. And finally, I will listen to your intro and call to action and give you some advice on how you can improve the format of your show. So you get a lot for $99. Yeah. And so definitely check it out. It's over at podcastliftoff.com/offer. I will put both of those in the comments/chat. And you'll get, if you signed up for this and you're not just watching the stream right now, you can sign up in the link in the description if you are just watching the stream. But you'll also get a link to the replay as well as these resources. So with that, why don't we open it up for questions? So first of all, thanks, Trudy, for joining me today. For this, I was really excited to do this. I don't know anything about branding, and so I'm really happy that you were able to join.
It's quite funny how many web developers know nothing about branding. It's quite scary, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, but it's absolutely true, right? For me, I always focused on the code part, right? I was never a good designer. And so
absolutely believe that they are two such different beasts that I mean, maybe the younger designers are amazing at the technical side, but for me, it's just like I really want to focus on being really creative, and developers just love doing the building, the making, the creating it, making it come to life, kind of thing. And yeah, they're not generally so hot on the design aspects.
Yeah, and I mean honestly, if if I'm being honest, understanding it, like if you're a designer, you almost get put in a box if you're also the developer, right? Because then you know the constraints, and so your designs may not be as nice as you thought they could be, because you're like, well, how would I even do this in HTML,
You're
right?
one step ahead of yourself at that
Yeah,
point, not just
yeah,
design, or you're still building in your mind.
yeah, and that was always my problem, right? I would always open up Photoshop. I'm really old. I would open up Photoshop and I would start designing something, and then I'd be like, how am I going to do this? And then I would just end up opening a text editor and write the HTML anyway. And so then I
Uh,
never knew where I was going, right? I was just like, oh, well, yeah.
I remember back in the noughties, so I've been designing websites for a long, long time,
Yeah.
and way back then, you could practically do nothing whatsoever with HTML. It's not like designing a website today, where you can pretty much do anything and it can be built. But back then, when an animated GIF was the height of excitement, woo, woo,
Hmm.
and I used to have big rounds with the developers, like, right, I want it to do this, I want this there, I want that there, I want this overlapping. And they'll be like, overlapping? You're joking. We don't do overlapping. And I'm like, oh, it's got to be here, got to be that. And technology has just come on so much. But yeah, pretty much we always figured it out from my very limited knowledge of how to build a website, and their keenness to do what I asked them. We always pretty much worked it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember that too. People would give me, because I made most of my money working with designers. They would send me Photoshop files
Mm.
and they would say, turn this into a WordPress site. Um, and I would be like, oh, I can't do this, or like, we're constrained here. Or I had one. This was like in the 2010s. I had one designer say, I want this font to look exactly like it does in the design. So if you need to, just take a screenshot and use that as the text. And I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Oh
I'm
my
not
god.
using an image as the full text. First of all, it eliminates the point of using WordPress. Second of all, it's not accessible. So if that's really a constraint, then I am not the right developer for you. Um, and he
There
ended
was
up relenting.
a lot of learning on both sides, I think, in
Yeah,
terms of what was search engine friendly and what was practical.
yeah.
And
And this was before, like, what was it? Typekit, is that the one that got bought by Adobe and Google Fonts? Um, you know, web designers these days have it so easy, or whatever. But like, it's true.
they so do. They so
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. So as far as questions go, I'm watching the chat, so we'll stay here for a few more minutes. If you have any questions for Trudy or me about branding and positioning, Trudy, one question for you is, um, how often, like, if you know that your original brand isn't working, when is it time to rebrand? Is it possible to rebrand too much? So I guess that's a two-part question.
Yeah, and it's a two-part answer, really. So when somebody comes to me and say, I want to rebrand, the first question I'm going to ask you is why? Because there are good reasons and there are bad reasons to rebrand. There's a good reason would be, I've changed my subject offering, I've changed my audience. Something is vastly different about the kind of people I want to appeal to, or the type of business that I am. It's, if you've changed and you want to leave behind something about the old brand, then it's time to rebrand. A bad reason to want to rebrand is, oh, I'm bored of this, or my competitors rebranded. It's and sometimes it's not a question of like, oh, I want something completely different. Sometimes it's more of a, I want to freshen this up. It's not that I want to lose all that brand equity that I have, that I've built up over X amount of years, but I just need to move with the times, do something more modern. So sometimes it's a case of, yeah, let's stop that there, put that aside and create something brand new that will really relaunch you. And sometimes it's a case of, let's progress what you have, move it forward, make it more now, make it more appropriate.
Yeah, I like that a lot. The board part really resonates with me, right? Because this is like, again, every freelance web designer, right? Or maybe not just web designer, but like it would get real slow in like December, January, right? And so that was like redesign season for all of us. Oh, I'm just gonna play with my site and like redesign it, maybe pick a new theme, whatever. So but that's really important, right? Because like what you change on your website affects the user experience. If the user knows to go here to always find this one resource and then you change everything, right, and that's going to negatively impact. um
But when I was talking about brand equity, oh, this could be in the shape of your brand colors. This could be in the shape of your brand font. And people start, once they see you again and again and again, they start to recognize those features. So for me, it's this green color. And for various brands, they have their own colors. So IKEA, when you see a sign that's blue and yellow, you have IKEA, right?
yeah, yes,
Just checking.
yeah,
It's not a European thing, but don't you? You know that from a way off, even if you haven't got your glasses on and you can't see the writing, you still know that that's IKEA because you recognise that blue and that yellow, and it's the same with fonts and the colours. You just, even when, like, Coca-Cola is the most recognisable brand in the world, even in countries that are completely illiterate. They can't read the words Coca-Cola. They don't need to. They recognise it. They recognise that font. And all of this builds trust. Recognition builds trust. It builds familiarity. It builds almost friendship, if not the right word, but like and trust somebody who you see over and over and over again. You build a relationship with them. And that is branding. That is what branding does. It builds relationships and trust.
yeah. It's really interesting you mentioned Coca-Cola because Pepsi like just redesigned their logo. I don't know if you saw this.
No, I haven't seen this one yet. Is
Yeah,
it?
so I guess, is Pepsi okay? First, I'll ask. I don't know if that's a joke in the UK, but it's always like people here ask. Oh, there we go. Yeah, people always ask in restaurants, right? I'll have a Coke, and it's always like, is Pepsi okay? Um, so they just redesigned their logo, and I'm wondering. First of all, I didn't realize how often they really redesigned their like canonical logo. Um, I guess in my head it was always like the 87 to 97 one. But like, I mean, looking at the 08 to 22, like, of course, that's like on everything now. So it's just funny. Um, when I saw that they redesigned it, I immediately thought of like the 87 to 97 logo and not like the most recent logo.
Yeah, it's interesting how brands do progress. I mean, this one has changed not so much since 1950,
Hmm.
but you can see that before that they were trying to be a rip-off of Coca-Cola. That was
Yeah.
that, and then they've decided actually we'll go our own way and do our own thing. And then since then, it's been more tweaks than right back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I was talking about brand progression, really. So it's not a cut cut it off, start again from the ground up. It's very much a, okay, well, what how do we move with the times? What is a perception of us now? What is our marketplace looking like? What do our customers expect from us, and reevaluation of where you sit. And I think the 2008 2022 one got blasted a lot for looking like somebody's like a I guess the t-shirt and the trousers of somebody whose bum's hanging out. Like,
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
I think maybe they decided actually they've had enough of everybody taking a mic.
Yeah, that's funny. Um, I totally forgot about that. Um,
Mm. But I'm
so
not sure about the new typeface.
yeah, it's really that's really interesting to me. I was also just looking at the Coca-Cola logo, and that like really hasn't changed very much in 130 years or whatever. Um,
No, Coca-Cola and with the what's the beer? Oh gosh, I can see the can. It's a white can,
um,
but
you just say beer, like an American beer, or
Stella Artois. Do you have
oh
Stella?
yeah, Stella Artois, yeah, yeah,
So that logo hasn't changed either. For like that's for one of the closest to the original logos ever from 1860 or something ridiculous.
yeah.
So some
So
some stand the test of time, and they don't need to change.
right, right. That's so interesting. Well, I haven't seen any more questions come in, so Trudy, thank you. Um, Thank you for. I mean, this is like was our webinar, but it's on my live stream, so I feel like I should thank you for coming on the YouTube
Thank
channel.
you.
Yeah,
Thanks for doing this with me.
yeah, my pleasure. This was so fun. Thank you to everybody watching who's watching live or in the replay. Again, be sure to check out those special offers. Really, really great discounts on both products. And I reckon that this will be a limited time offer. I know it is for me. So definitely act now. And again, if you're not signed up for the list, click the link in the description and join our mailing list, and you'll get a replay reminder and offer reminders, as well as a bunch of other great resources. So, again, thanks so much for joining us. And I usually say until next time, get out there and build something. Trudy, I don't know if you have a fun sign off.
We should do, shouldn't I? Oh, goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody. Bye.